the very minds of the people we are trying to save. But until we do, these people are still a part of that system, and that makes them our enemy. You have to understand, most of these people are not ready to be unplugged. And many of them are so inert, so hopelessly dependent on the system, that they will fight to protect it.
The time has come. Execute Order 66.
You're live with King MattTheGod. The God's back.
Let go.
Let's get lost in.
I see you becoming the greatest of all Jedi, Anakin. Even more powerful than Master Yoda.
Look, no.
Less than an hour ago, an assassination attempt was made against my life. I don't need more security, I need answers. I want to know who's trying to kill me.
We will find out who's trying to kill you, Padme. I promise you.
The Republic cannot be fixed, my lady. It is time to start over.
I think the Republic needs you. I'm glad that you chose to serve.
It must be difficult having sworn your life to the Jedi.
You've made a commitment to the Jedi Order, a commitment not easily broken. I am concerned for my Padawan. He is not ready to be given this assignment in his own country.
As my first act, I will counter the increasing threats of the Separatists.
Finally, the shroud of the dark side has fallen. Begun. The Clone War has.
Wake up, Senators! You must wake up!
I'm a Jedi. I know I'm better than this.
Anakin!
Alright, we are back with another one. I am King MattTheGod, and you are now live. Probably gonna be like 0 viewers, but hey. We gonna get there. What am I back with another one? A deep one. Deep into the soul of human history. What's been going on. I want y'all to kind of understand. It's interesting how these last couple videos are starting to steer me in a direction of coming full circle when I first did a test live streams. I did 2 videos called the rabbit holes. One rabbit hole and did another rabbit hole. Nah, I mean pause. But then, so I want y'all to kind of go back and check out one of my first live streams or my first uploads. It was called The Gates of Alexander, something like that. But check that joint out. So it's coming full circle. But I'm just going, because it seems like a lot of us keep trying to point me back in the direction of what happened in Europe. How did Europe go from black to white, per se? Like, what happened? What happened to the indigenous folk? What happened? How did he get exiled? and we're gonna go in deep. But it's starting to pinpoint certain points in history of this topic I'm going into. Cloning. What about cloning? We seen it in movies. We even got real life incidents and reports and news reports of them cloning sheep and animals. I'm pretty sure they cloned some people already. You know what I mean? They ain't fucking slick. I mean, we always joke online and social media, and you see how like motherfuckers they go to jail and they come out looking different, acting different, or motherfucker going to a mental hospital and they come out acting crazy or acting spooky. But we're gonna get into something more deeper though, about cloning in the 1800s and 1900s. Like what? Fuck you mean? That don't even make sense. Like, we ain't had that kind of technology back then. But it goes a little deeper. Maybe it's not that much complicated when it comes down to alchemy and homunculi. We're gonna talk a little bit about incubator babies. I'm gonna let these videos start to stir up what I'm getting at. And no offense to no race, we all still together in this, but we gotta know the fucking history of it, so we can either prevent it from happening again, or we can orchestrate and have it happen again, but on a next level. So let's get started, because I believe in the 1800s and 1900s that was part of the Clone Wars. So alright, y'all ready? It gets deep. I'm up late. It's past midnight. Y'all better get this motherfucking gems, man. Let's go. Let's see what I got for y'all.
A trend with old postcards from the 1900s showing early examples of compositing. There isn't much.
Hold up, technical difficulties. Let's see why my headphones just shut off. Do whatever the fuck they want to do.
Information on these. If there's a catalog, it's not easy to come by. But many of these are.
Oh, hold on. Still not connected. I don't know why, but it's pissing me off. Alright, sometimes you have a little technical difficulties. One moment. How y'all feeling out there? You ready for some deep shit? Of course, people I know that's up in my age bracket gonna remember a lot of this shit I'm about to go over. But damn, it's your my headphones just clunked out. Alright, let's go. My headphones said I ain't talking to you. Oh no, are we back? Alright, we back. Oh. Technical difficulties again.
Photo manipulation. They had surreal, real photo postcards in which they would attempt to trick people with the illusion of
Less than
photography.
an hour ago,
As we
An
continue to
assassination
look through
attempt was
these
made
old
against my rival.
postcards, a very strange and unsettling trend started to
I
become
don't
apparent.
need more security, I need answers.
It began with just simple baby
I want to
postcards.
know who's trying to kill me.
At first thought, seems like any ordinary
We'll find out
postcard.
who's trying to kill you, Padme.
But as with the same Sky postcard
Promise you.
mystery,
The
where
Republic
the author began to
cannot
see a
be
trend of a
fixed,
variety
my
of
lady.
postcards,
It is time to start.
there's a category of postcards that
I think the
deserves its
Republic
own
needs
name
you.
and label, but it doesn't seem very well
Glad that
known.
you chose to serve.
Remember them, y'all? Hey, I know people that's
Must be
up there in my age.
difficult
I don't
having
want to say my
this
age.
Jedi.
You've made a commitment to the Jedi Order, a
I
commitment
never
not easily
speak my
broken.
age. Dare. Alright, wait.
I am
Yeah,
concerned
I'm
for
pretty
my
sure
Padawan.
y'all gonna start remembering.
He is not ready to be given this
the
assignment
baby
in his own
postcards and the Cabbage Patch era.
As my
That was
first
always pushed
act,
heavy
I will counter
with them
the
toys
increasing
and the
threats
storks.
of the Separatists.
So I'm just giving y'all a direction what I'm talking about. Like, why was it like they would just like you can order you a baby from the stork or something? Like a baby just fly in, swipe your credit card. Let's go.
As there are no websites or videos explaining this topic, we shall call it the mystery of the repopulation postcards.
Wake up, senators!
There
You
are
must
other
wake
names
up.
for this style, such as picture postcard. By the end of this video, you'll be shocked at how many of these there are.
I'm a Jedi.
We're talking in the thousands. We found one reference to
I'm
what
back.
these cards were in the Brooklyn Amazon named Babylon, the Real Babies, in which the author describes these same peculiar 1900's postcards and how they were deeply influential to many famous artists, including Salvador Dali. Yet, the author even admits that little is known of their history. In order to understand why we've labeled them repopulation postcards, a thorough understanding of resets, Tartaria, orphan trains, incubators, asylums, and oddfellows will be necessary. These cards depict babies being grown. There are many different styles within this category. One of the most interesting is the Cabbage Patch babies. Variety of themes involving growing babies.
All white babies. I ain't shit. I'm not saying, but I'm just saying. Like a baby salad.
Babies on plants. Babies on mushrooms. Babies in the water.
Right, like who dropped these babies off? Like I'm envisioning some helicopter just drop off like 100 babies in each fucking area. Like who's watching these babies? Like it just dropped them the fuck off. Like the babies just fend for themselves and shit. Like what type of savage shit going on here?
Babies in a nest. Babies in eggs being hatched. Then the babies arrive on the train.
There's too many babies for my comfort. It's just too many babies. Like,
There's something eerie about these photos, as if someone's trying to tell us something.
Yeah, they got babies on wholesale
We've
market.
also got kids in Cabbage Patches. Does this have anything to do with the Cabbage Patch Kids? So where do babies come from? In the early 1900s, the most common answer given to children would simply be that the stork would bring the babies, or that they were found in a cabbage patch. But why would babies be found in cabbage patches? The legend of the Cabbage Patch Kids involves a young boy named Xavier who meets a mystical fairy bunny bee creature, so a hybrid or chimera, and he follows this bunny bee through a secret tunnel behind a waterfall. On the other side of this waterfall, he finds that babies are being produced in a cabbage patch. The stork, known as Colonel Casey, would then come and pick up the babies. He even has his own uniform. So he's a worker, a soldier, as well as the Cabbage Patch Kids' official historian that would then deliver the babies to their new homes. Not only that, but there's an evil witch named Lavender McDay. She and her weasel and jackrabbit henchmen are literally trying to enslave the Cabbage Patch Kids to be miners to dig for gold in the valley. You can get all the exposition for the lore in the story through their 10-song album. It goes over how they were created to the
10-song album. Them niggas got hits, huh? Fucking baby snatcher hits.
witch to even a lament about their enslavement. It's pretty dark. The original concept for the cloth dolls was created by Martha Nelson Thomas, and she called them doll babies. And the story really had nothing to do with cabbages or chimeras or witches. It wasn't until Xavier Roberts, or Xavier, like the little boy in the story, hijacked her design that it became what it is today. So I can't help.
There's something creepy about like a ventriloquist, like your hand up to like the doll's like ass and shit, like creepy ass dude.
But wonder if Xavier Roberts just came up with the story all on his own. Like, did it come to him from the collective consciousness, or does he just have a soft spot for child labor? There's actually a place you can go in White County, Georgia, where they do live births, and you can look it up on YouTube to see what I'm talking about. The bunny bee character also is a hybrid creature of two animals that both symbolize rebirth and resurrection on a mass scale. 5 in Europe. They turned this into a sideshow, where at the 60s, people just stopped having babies and getting married after World War II to sweep this part of history under the rug. The orphanages were all shut down, and after the 60s, people just stopped having babies and getting married after World War II, according to the narrative. Then there were the incubators of 1900's. It's difficult to keep premature babies alive with modern technology, yet they were doing this back in 1835 in Europe. They turned this into a sideshow, where at the world fairs they would show off these child hatcheries, these incubators of live children, and for some reason, the royals would come and witness these events. So there's this genetic manipulation cloning idea, in which these babies are actually being grown in some sort of pods. Perhaps the symbolism of the Cabbage Patch mirrors that process. Humans do resemble plants in the way that we're connected to a stem in our fetal state, and our whole lives are spent ripening. In the fetal abduction theory, we typically see a nurse-looking woman with either a fishing hook or a fishing net pulling a child out of the water. Perhaps the hook and net represent medical tools and the water amniotic fluid. In either scenario, it would make sense that these babies have to end up in incubators or hatcheries. And it begs the question, how did all these premature babies get here? If women back in, these days were having babies prematurely, why in such large numbers? And the babies all being babies, they'd have to have traveled there somehow within a short period of time. What are the chances that so many premature babies were driven from wherever their mothers were to these incubators all in time? And why do they charge people to view them, as if this was some sort of exhibition or sideshow, and not a pressing matter of life and death? For centuries, the stork has been thought of as a symbol for new beginnings and family lineage. The idea that this creature represents life-giving events also makes sense because storks are monogamous creatures, and they mate only once every year with their partners that they've chosen beforehand, choosing mates based solely on personality instead of looks, like many other birds. Now we've got kids inside a train. Orphan trains. Why so many orphans? Were these orphans taken from their families? Were they trained to instruct a new generation of genetically created babies? Or were they womb-napped babies? And we've got kids growing on trees, kids being carried by storks. The Greek goddess Hera and her Roman counterpart Juno also favor the stork. And I'm sure you guys remember that quirky little teen pregnancy movie from the 2000s. And I suspect that Artemis of Ephesus is an ancient fertility symbol used by the elite to signify their ability to reseed a new population. So we've got hooks removing babies, kids in the water with a woman holding a net or fishing rod. The water, the amniotic fluid.
Alright. Is you down the rabbit hole enough? Let's go. Like, you're not far down there enough. See, this just coming with a concept of maybe in this era, the mid 1900s, it could have just been some art, postcard art. It's nothing strange here. But I need you to look deeper and deeper. We always talk about alchemy and as it pertains to metals, but they kind of shun away from talking about how it pertains to biological creatures and trying to incubate creatures and bring them to full life. So maybe it's not so technologically perfect you have to be to like. Cause they said, because in a video I'm about to show y'all, they talking about they first started using a chicken incubator. It was similar to a chicken incubator, and they got the baby to grow to full term. So seems like they may have been able to infertilize eggs with sperm back in that day. I'm not sure how they extracted the egg out of the woman, but they did something. And I'm glad you're here with me on this spooky evening. I feel like Halloween right now. Like, all right, let's go on to the next video.
Let's jump on the bandwagon. Looks like these strange early 1900s baby postcards have inspired a bit of a viral trend recently. I may not know much about orphan trains, repopulation or early incubator babies, but I have been collecting fantasy postcards for nearly a decade now, and cards in general for many more. Mummy, Daddy, where did I come from? Many moons ago. Before internet search engines and fact checker existed, prudish parents would avoid the embarrassment of talking about the birds and the bees to their awkward, inquisitive kids by recounting a whole host of simple creation cliches that little Johnny Genius conveniently emerged ready-made from a cabbage or was delivered tracks and signed by Stork Express. Fantasy and mythology have probably existed since our caveman ancestors told epic tales round the campfires years before 3D TV existed, helping them find meaning in a bewilderingly chaotic world. But the invention of photography combined with improvements in mass colour printing technology and a fast and cheap postal service. Remember, in those days you often got same day delivery at half a penny. The social media of its time. I will most likely come over this evening. All this and a little bit of Edwardian photo editing wizardry made these collage and photo montage postcards that little bit more real and compelling in a world that still clung to its superstitions. Is it any surprise that postcards like these inspired the surrealists and other creatives to mould and shape the world we know today? Evidently, vintage postcards are still a rich source of creative inspiration for curious minds. Here's a creepy, real human hair postcard. Just the ticket, choo-choo, for the next iconic novel written by your cat. Or brand
What the hell?
new
I swear this motherfucker was gonna go deep. I don't know why. This motherfucker played me. This motherfucker talking gibberish. He mentioned the postcards, but he mentioned nothing. All right, let's go to the next one. This nigga played with my emotions, man.
Sure, World's Fairs have served as launching pads for all kinds of fun foods and inventions, and we've already talked about the history of the X-ray and World's Fairs, but today we're going to focus on another medical marvel, but this one was conceived as a sideshow. The 1933 Century of Progress Centennial Exposition, more commonly known as the 1933 Chicago World's Fair, had the motto, "Science finds, industry applies, man adapts." Well, that was certainly fitting for one of the most unusual exhibits at the fair. Living babies in incubators. That's how the sign put it, rather bluntly, at the 1933 Chicago World's Fair. Unlike X-rays demonstrated at the 1904 fair, these incubators weren't being hailed as a medical breakthrough, at least not initially. Instead, they were part of a somewhat seedy sideshow carnival-esque part of the fair. For Martin Cooney, the man behind the exhibit, showcasing premature babies behind glass was nothing new. He'd started.
Hold up. Hold up. Oh, stop it.
Sure,
I need a visual of that damn.
Fairs, but today we're going to focus on another medical marvel, but this one was conceived as a sideshow. The 1933 Century of Progress Centennial Exposition, more commonly known as the 1933 Chicago World's Fair, had the motto, for Martin Cooney, the man behind.
I need a freeze frame of this, Sean. Boom. Alright, can y'all see that? Take a look at it. Look at it. It basically looked like a fucking fridge. Fucking microwave. But we're going to hear a little bit of testimony later of what one scientist was doing, one doctor was doing. But they basically was keeping the baby warm at about like 80 to 85 degrees and basically in water. So I don't know if the baby was like floating in water where it won't drown or whatever. But this joint look like it ain't nothing in there, joint. Like, unless they fill it up with water. That's why I say, like, with the baby laying down, it'll drown, right? Alright. It look like a microwave. Is that a real baby in there, man? What the fuck? Is that a real baby? Alright, let's go.
Behind the exhibit, showcasing premature babies behind glass was nothing new. He'd started his infantorium at Coney Island 30 years earlier. And while his exhibits had traveled to various fairs and shows, it was the 1933 World's Fair that gave Cooney his widest exposure, with hundreds of thousands of people paying the 25-cent entry fee to see the babies.
Alright, okay. That, for one, just off the bat, is just creepy. Like what? That y'all would come there and like watch it. Like, if I were walking there, like today's now, you will walk in there, and as soon as you walk in, you be like, oh, yo, what the fuck? Like, you might go up and look at it, but you're gonna be horrified. Like, yo, shut this shit down. That shit'll be shut down in 24 hours. Niggas will be pulling their phone out. That shit'll be shut down. But my point is, like, I mean, I'm not saying y'all some sick-minded people, but to be casually just like, unless they was under the impression that they wasn't real, and it was crazy and it was real. Like, because you go to those fairs with those the fat lady with a person with a bunch of piercings and some weird freakazoids, so you don't expect that, like, that's a real baby in there. So I don't know.
The babies were displayed in clean, sterile environments with several nurses attending them. Funded by the admission fee, Cooney didn't charge parents of the babies for treatment. After the fair ended, Chicago became the first city in the United States to announce policies.
So those was real babies? Like, people's real, they like let they be. I mean, obviously, I mean, if your baby born premature and is about to die and they somehow can save it back in that era, you ain't really gonna be complaining. But man, y'all got my shit all like in some freak sideshow fucking display at a fair, at a carnival and shit. Like, yo, hey, yo. That baby look upset. That's a damn shame.
Around premature baby care. And less than 20 years later, incubators were common in hospitals across the nation, saving the lives of thousands of babies.
White babies.
We just had time to touch on the life of Martin Cooney and his incubators, but if you'd like to learn...
I'm just stating the obvious, like... well, you already know it's history, like... certain races, elites and groups of people did like black people pretty much, and they pretty sure they're not going to be like cloning us, like try to get rid of it, like get rid of you motherfuckers, there's too many of y'all, like we need to even the odds, like, and that's a little bit of the point here I'm trying to point out here, but I'm gonna let y'all get the feel of it, like, so like, we need to even the odds. Hold up.
To learn more, I'd highly suggest this book. It's called The Strange Case of Dr. Cooney: How a Mysterious European Showman Saved Thousands of Babies. We have Amazon and Bookshop links below if you want to check it out.
Babies.
There were a lot of new and unusual sights to be seen at the 1933 fair, but the public glimpse of the Incubator had to rank near the top.
Incubaby.
If you liked this video, please subscribe to learn about the inventions, foods, and more that came.
You know what else I was trying to get like footage of, like just some concept footage of? Remember that movie Robo Jocks? Like, yo, some of y'all ain't gonna know this, but check out and search Robo Jocks. Like, and if you ever watch the whole movie, you'll probably catch the scenes of they be talking about like how the basically they're fighting giant robots like Gundams or some shit, like, and it was made back in the 80s or 90s. I don't know when the movie was made, but basically the pilots of these Jones, they was cloned and raised to be fighters and to control and fight in these giant mechs. So, and I wanted to get footage of that, like, and that was another thought that came in my head, like, and that's a concept that was going on too. Like, they needed soldiers for war in these different periods. World War II is a common pinpoint that keeps popping up in these last couple of videos, like. So, you know, they needed soldiers, and watch, they're going to be explaining in one of these videos that 12-month incubation, like the baby be like 4 or 5 years old. Like, what the fuck? Like, ooh, that shit hit me. You know how we be talking about, oh, they clone Kanye or they clone somebody. They probably can have a motherfucker coming to full term now within fucking a month. He'd be full grown. Like, ooh, all right, let's go. Maybe a year. Like, I would say like a year.
From World's Fairs. Thanks for watching.
What? Oh no, get out of here. All right, I added this to it because it goes deep how I'm trying to drop a gem on y'all that, like, during the Holocaust, rest in peace to the dead, it was mainly the black indigenous that was wiped out at first. And a lot of these histories and stories, they never get told. It's funny how you have like certain Caucasians. I have some great white friends and great best friends and great soldiers and partners. So there's always never is shots at them, but it's shots at ones that like have like a racial narcissism. Let's go deep. So a lot of times the new woke, we're gonna call them woke black wizards or something, because these motherfuckers, we going in deep. And we finding out shit and we post it and different things, and you know they be in the comments like blah 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 big mad and trying to like refute it, and like all you gotta do is look up all this shit. So I found the story of the original indigenous of Germany, Cause I was starting to go in deep of like them concentration camps during Nazi Germany, and it seemed like they was already built and ready. Like they was, unless they used them on somebody already. Stay woke. But this right, see, look, 1900 to 1945. When did the fucking World War II start? A little like right around the end of 45. Let me look it up. So that's what I'm saying, right? Peep that. Marinate on that. Alright, said. Alright. It said 1939. German invasion of Poland. Alright. 1939. Black Holocaust ended 1945. So they was already into it. I don't even have nothing crazy to say about this thumbnail. Like, I'm trying to see if y'all see it. Ridiculous. Like, it's ridiculous. But let's go in. It's just a pinpoint of the concept of they needed to repopulate. Because, I mean, no racist. It's like a no homo slang now. Like, no racist. But I'm just saying, like, it's always a sentiment amongst blacks. Like, where did white people come from? Like, it seemed like large numbers of them appeared out of nowhere and just took over everything. It's like it ain't nothing wrong with that. The motherfuckers came, they came squad deep, but they kept repopulating some weird way, like fast. So I'm gonna let y'all take a look at this. So you gotta get rid of the old before you repopulate. So rock out.
Germany has a complicated history with its black people. While the country was not a major colonial power compared to other European countries, it did have a colonial presence in Africa in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, and it played a crucial role in the transatlantic slave trade. During the colonial period, Germany established several colonies in Africa, including Togo, Cameroon, and Namibia. In Namibia, German colonial forces committed genocide against the Herero and Nama people, resulting in the deaths of tens of thousands of people between 1904 and 1908. The colonial authorities also forcibly recruited laborers and imposed harsh conditions on the local population. In addition to the colonial period, Germany also had a small but significant population of black Germans during the 20th century. Some of these individuals, also known as Afro-Germans, were descendants of black people in Germany since the 18th century, and the children of African soldiers who were stationed in Germany during the First and Second World Wars, while others came to Germany as immigrants or refugees.
That's a hijack, though. They were already there. Whether they came up a little bit after the flood or deluge, or what we would say, but they didn't migrate there like at this certain point, and then all of a sudden just start getting like exterminated. Like they was already there, and then like invaders came, and we'll go deep into that too.
During the Third Reich, when the Nazi Party ruled Germany, black Germans were subjected to discrimination, persecution, and violence along with other minority groups. They were classified as Rhineland bastards and subjected to forced sterilization under Adolf.
Remember that too. They used to call them like a derogatory slang, call them Rhineland bastards because they was from Rhineland. So remember that.
Hitler's eugenics program. Some black Germans were also interned in concentration camps and used as forced labor. After the Second World War, Black Germans continued to face discrimination and marginalization despite legal protections against racism and discrimination. In recent years, there have been efforts to recognize and address the historical and ongoing discrimination faced by Black people in Germany, including the establishment of organizations dedicated to promoting the rights and interests of Black Germans. This episode looks at the brutal treatment and mass killings that Germany did to Africans and Afro-Germans.
That was it? Oh no, they ain't. Was it there?
The start of a new century can be regarded as a new chapter in the annals of history. And with every new chapter comes the first of everything, either good, bad, or dark, that would occur repeatedly in that chapter and subsequent ones.
Alright, so it looked like they talking about it first started in about 1904, like a first genocide. I don't know how many people, but damn, I hate that word now.
On the pages of Dark Events, it doesn't appear as a surprise that Germany did the honors of launching the first genocide of the 20th century with the Herero genocide. It would appear that the reason for the annihilation of about 75% of the Herero population in the space of 4 years was to serve as a general punishment to the entire race for their wrongdoings. And to be fair, if it could be considered fair at all from hindsight, rumor has it that it wasn't the German militia who struck the first blow. But while the reason may have been punishment for rebellion in the beginning, it progressively tended towards racial cleansing with time, the removal of the impure for the pure and the new to emerge. The tragic genocide which took place in present-day Namibia, which was then named German Southwest Africa, didn't just happen unprovoked. It could be said that it resulted from years of conflict and strife between the native Herero and the white German invaders. But maybe, just maybe, it wasn't meant to happen to the Herero people. For you see, they were not the original dwellers of the land. The San and the Khoi, being the original natives, were driven out of the territory to the dry, rugged hills by the Herero during the mid-18th century. The country flowed with milk and honey and had vast expanses of rich, arable land. So, the Herero, being cattle herders, seized it for themselves. A century and a half later, the Germans would pay a visit to the African territory and, as was the craving of the era, subject it to colonial rule. German Southwest Africa formally became a German colony following the Berlin Conference of 1884 and 1885, and it was then the historical path of both parties merged into what would become a blood-bathed path, haunted by ghosts of tens of thousands of black men, women, and children. Over the span of 10 years of colonization, the native groups were subjected to hard labor and had their land and livestock either seized or stolen by their colonial masters. That Germany didn't have richer African countries that promised profitable ventures under their colony wasn't the case. So, one would wonder why they bothered to disturb these nomads who had nothing to give but cattle. But you see, the land was what was in it for the Germans, for it was 2 times as large as their country, but the population of the natives paled in comparison to that of the Germans. So, it became a suitable settling place for the Germans in Africa, and they wasted no time in establishing that, as 3,000 Germans were comfortably settled on the central high grounds of today's Namibia by 1903. This migration of the white men, albeit not so large, naturally led to conflict as there were not enough resources to cater to the needs of the natives and the settlers altogether. The socio-economic balance of the society was disrupted, and overarching challenges of survival kicked off in earnest. The Germans would have had an easy ride over the people of Herero and the other natives of the land, despite their number, but for the industrious nature and quest for modernization of the Herero, who over the years had learned to ride horses and shoot guns. The first blow was dealt on the morning. The Herero largely had a field day, as the Germans were unprepared and unsuspecting of such an attack, which lasted for a few weeks. However, the Germans, under the command of Major Theodor Liutmann, who also served as the governor of the colony, began to call for reinforcements and ammunition supplies and fought back to defend themselves and ward off enemy lines. As soon as the level of control was reached, Major Liutmann chose reason over retaliation, and surmising that the German colonial garrison was outnumbered by the native fighters, who were armed and brutal, he reckoned that the best line of action to take was to have a conflict resolution discussion with the Herero. Perhaps, if the negotiation had taken place, a compromise might have been reached and things would not have gone bad. But either at
I don't like how they saying like the Germans, they had to defend themselves and stuff like, y'all invading their land. What the fuck you mean defend yourself? Y'all invading their land. He is not ready to be given this assignment in his own country. Cut it out.
As my first act, I will counter the
all strong arming. Y'all fought some casualties too.
As fate would have it, or by human engineering, that was not true. His proposition was overruled by the German colonial office in Berlin, who made it crystal clear that peace was not an option. The fighting continued, and just as the governor feared, on April 13, 1904, the German troops were overwhelmed, and the survivors returned to the base with tears between their legs. Consequently, Major Liutmann was relieved of his command of the military, and Lieutenant General Lothar von Schäfer was appointed by the German Emperor to take charge of the military. It is quite interesting that the Emperor was careful to select not just anybody, but one who was a colonial veteran of both the China Boxer Rebellion and the German East African Wars. No doubt about it, nothing short of delivery was expected of the general.
Damn. A couple times during this stream, I had to shut down my OBS and load it back up because the headphones keep like jumping off. And every time I load up fucking OBS, it plays that intro, that Star Wars trailer that I got. Yo, so that shit was in the background the whole time. Hey, theatrical, fuck it. That shit gonna sound stupid. Alright, but is y'all getting the motherfucking point? I'm getting the motherfucking point. They had to wipe out the indigenous population as every continent that has been happening. So who are these invaders? Well, I keep saying invaders. I'm trying to be politically correct. You know, some people be like colonizers. Some people say Caucasians. I don't like to throw these broad umbrellas out, even though everything you're going to say out is going to be an umbrella. Ella. Alright, so who are these invaders? My research and findings been just pointing, like I said before, a little mix of the Yakub's albinoids, a little bit of Esau, and a little bit of sons of Japheth. I kept saying Japheth, but we're gonna go with Japheth. It sounds better because it dumbs down to Japanese, all them different East Asian descendants. But a part of these three groups, maybe all three or just one, seems like they mix an interbred with Neanderthals or something of the nature. My deeper theory that motherfuckers ain't gonna concept yet is I kind of got an idea that sometime around, I don't know, around close to 70 AD on to 1800, around, I'm trying to pinpoint it. I believe Pleiadians, you know how they like blonde hair, they out there too, but they came in. I think they gave a little help to like the Caucasians and the Neanderthals or the troglodytes, different things that was like created, Nephilim. All right, so I believe they came and gave a little helping hand, and I won't go into a video more on like I believe that's kind of the story of like Dracula, Count Dracula, and you know how he was like some next level, like something fucked with him. He was different. He was different, like even down to the like the all the vampire and Lycan movies. Like we can even go deeper to fucking Romulus, and yeah, we don't want to go too deep, but all right, let's go. So let's go into the. I got another video that's going deep on you, but like I said, so a little bit of theory is after the Holocaust and World War II, they need to repopulate. And ain't that right when around all that Cabbage Patch, stork, incubator baby shit start popping off? It all just started lining up. So let's check this out. This one ain't playing, but let's see. Oh, you're gonna make me skip this, John. It's not playing on PowerPoint. Oh, I got some shit for you. I mean, y'all got the point of like, let's just be honest, like, in black indigenous all over the globe. But like I said, the invaders. Where is that video of one of the? I might let her crazy ass talk to you. She a little batshit crazy, but she right on point. She gonna start going deep into right back where I said before, that video I did, the Gates of Alexander, Walls of Alexander, one of them shit like that.
Greetings, Earthlings. Welcome.
Batshit crazy.
And Caucasian synthesis. So one of the first things we'll be addressing is about 2 years now. I got to take one hand off and just say 2 years now, and I had to give you guys this discovery and let you know something. Say something, say something. So of course, you did from the peninsula of Angela. Now the etymology of the word Anglo means angle, to fish with a hook, related to angle, hack, and the Pi root anklu, meaning to bend. Sharing the same root word origin with the word Anglo, with angle, noun meaning space or difference between intersecting lines, point or direction one approaches something. And I don't know if you remember from your note and from my previous videos that the LE and the EL used to be switched around, or at times they have been switched around when it comes to the evolution of language. Now I think I should give an example, but I can't think of one. I will write one in the description or in the comment section. When asked about their origin from the surrounding tribes, it is unknown. Basically, no one knows where they came from. Aliens. So let's find out where the Caucasoids came from. It is said that they are from King Angul of Angels, or angels. And not much was written on him when I went to go look up the information. When you look up the word origin of the word Sax, it comes from the late Latin 14th century Saxons. When you look at the word Sax, it comes from the late Latin Saxonum, Old Norse, meaning knight, short sword, dag, meaning to cut. So 2 and 1, also both meaning cutting. Related words are bisect, dissect, hack, saw, jig, saw, intersect, saw, section, and segment. This is why when they traveled the world for the first time, it caused major disruption to the world's peace. They took whole parts, cut it into pieces, and this was amongst all peoples. They basically ripped people from their way of life, their cultures, and their families. Disturbing the peace is in the Caucasian nature, and those are the people who emerged from what we now know today as the country Great Britain, Britain, Brittany, Britannia. And just to be clear, these are not the same people to the south of the Mediterranean who are also had their hands in colonization. But those are French, Spanish, or the Eastern European peoples like in Latvia or Poland, Gypsies, or even Scandinavia, the Nordic people to the north. Young nigga from the Nile, but it ain't got no mind. So, what is a Caucasian? A California Asian. All Asians that are in California are California Asians. So, a Caucasian is from the word origin stemming from the Caucasus Mountains. It's a mountain range between the Black and Caspian Sea, with the base root ka, meaning mountain. Pretty simple. So basically, it is historically accounted that Alexander the Great built a great barrier in the Caucasus to keep the uncivilized barbarians from invading into the south. All the stuff that he set up for his people, okay? And these people were associated with Gog and Magog. And just to touch on Gog and Magog just a little bit, for those of you who are not familiar, in the Bible and Islamic texts, it is identified with unclean nation who engaged in cannibalism. Also, people of Yajuj and Majuj who do great mischief on this earth. Sound familiar? I think it does. And also, Gog Magog is the name of the legendary British giant. So, duh, they named it after Gog Magog. So the gates of Alexander, as the story goes on, were meant to keep the Scythians, also the other name, in their cave and out of the rest of humanity. And basically, you guys know what happens when someone is feeling ostracized and left out. They relentlessly attack. And this lines up with a little bit before the time the Saxons emerged. So I'm going to get into one more etymology and historical fact, and then we'll get into our theory of Caucasian synthesis. I looked into the etymology of the word anger because it sounds like angel. And I was also remembering that from one of my references that somewhere in history the letters L and R used to be the same, or R or L, or vice versa, as old people would say. And anger means to irritate, annoy, vex, provoke, distress, to take offense with. From the root ang, A-G-H, A-N-G-H, meaning tight, painfully constricted. All forms of angst, anxious, quinsy, with hypothetical evidence of its existence from the Latin angirem, which means to throttle and torment. And since they sound the same and have the same meaning, I don't see why it would be so hypothetical. But you know, whatever. Facts and papers. Also, there's a city called Anger in the province of Anjou, Angel, Angle, Anger, who was newer to the scene after the Anglos arrived, relating the word back to angel, anger, angle. I have often said for many years that Caucasoids must have had some type of help when conquering the world, because when they began colonizing, they didn't leave one stone unturned. Not one. Every country in Africa, it's like so freaking hot in Africa, like your scalp will get burned from the sun. Every little island in the South Pacific, like every tiny little island you came across and you stumbled across, and it's only a few of you guys. Greenland, Iceland, such arbitrary pieces of land mass, and yet you found it. How? Just seems highly improbable without some type of help. Just like the monkey who types on the keyboard, the probability is something like infinity that he would randomly type the lyrics to William Shakespeare's plays. The thing is, they are completely harmonious in their psychology, in the fact that they'll never turn on each other for you. They're like ants, colonies, ants. They'll, no matter how much they hate each other, they'll gang up to take you out. They will get you to fight each other or distract.
Yeah, I think my mic was muted for like the last 20 minutes too. A point I wanted to drop off, if I ain't said it before, if y'all ain't catch it. I always wonder, like, yo, what did we do to fucking like Caucasian people for them to be like, to whoever groups or whoever them leaders were, they just was on some colonize, take over land, take everything. And I used to always like wonder that, like come on. But a lot of my research kind of point out certain times, like, yeah, we locked their ass in the Caucasus Mountains. Like, that's what they was mad at in the motherfucker. Like, because different points that I came across, they talked about that they chased albinoids up into the Caucasus Mountains. Then the gates of Alexander, like, they locked them in there. It seemed like around roughly around 70 to 100 AD, they start breaking out or something the fuck going on. I gotta look back at my old video. Check out that old video, I'm telling you. It's called Gates of Alexander Rabbit Hole. One of the first shows I uploaded on this channel. So alright. So that's why I was like, damn, like, yo, what the fuck did we do to them? Like them niggas was just relentless at like a big period of time. They still are now, but seem like they concentrate on Middle East right now. they just fighting each other for the time period, like for the time being. But what happened, like, and like how she said before, like they felt alienated. And I mean, it was said that Egypt and the different kings kicked Yaqub's albinoids out of the land and chased them up northward towards the Caucasus area because they was out of pocket. They was tripping. Like, so I mean, if you tripping, like, you gotta go, like. But so that's what happened. They was up in the mountains, getting buff, taking their protein shakes, lifting weights for like 100 fucking years. The motherfuckers, like I said, imagine fucking 1,000 fucking Arnold Schwarzeneggers, like 100,000 fucking Sylvester Stallones, like just running down like from the mountain. Y'all niggas just cooked, like. All right, so it is what it is. It's history. But so it seemed like the invaders overall was what they would say called the Anglo-Saxons. Well, that's what they called themselves. I mean, they were Anglo-Saxons. Some call them the Blonde Horde. Some call them Germans, Germanic tribes. And my point why this all linked together was, I was thinking about them concentration camps in Germany, and they had to wipe out indigenous population and then repopulate them with incubator babies and all this crazy shit. And then I was like, who did it though? Where did these people come from? And Germany was one of the first places that the Anglo-Saxons basically invaded when they came out the fucking Caucasus Mountains. I don't know if it was around the gates of Alexander times when they broke free, but I don't know if it was different time periods. They might have kept going back, getting stronger. It's like the gym up there. It seems like it's the gym. Like, I'm trying. I would live up there. I wish I had that picture I had. Like, the caves look hollowed out on the side of the mountain. like a gym, nigga. Like, you niggas gonna get buff, come down and whoop some niggas' ass. Like, y'all niggas was down here, thought it was sweet, huh? Y'all ain't shit. You thought it was sweet, huh? Y'all down here partying, getting y'all little tribal dance on and shit. Alright. I'll be back. Get to the chopper. So, y'all kind of get the gist. I don't know if I should keep letting her play. She's crazy, but she's crazy, right? I got another video.
Earthly papers. Also, there's a city called Anchor in the province of Anjou, who was newer to the scene after the Anglos arrived, relating the word back to angel, anger, angle. I have often said for many years that Caucasoids must have had some type of help when they're like ants, colonies, ants. Goal tactic is the tactic of self-appointed authority. I have crowned myself, henceforth I am king over you, henceforth you must do what I say, cause look, I have a piece of
Yo, that's fucked up, but that's exactly how it was. Like, I am the Sultan of the King, and we are now rulers of this land, and if you don't like it, you can die. We'll hang you up real quick. Like hold up, like.
Paper, and I have many proofs to prove what I say is accurate. Basically, removing the innate sense of self and identity that says, hey, I have human rights and I know my human rights. And there could have been like some form of electromagnetism as far as magnetizing how objects attract each other, but I don't know.
That's a whole video in itself. That's a video I've been wanting to do. Why do opposites attract? Why do mixed races, they seem like white and blacks, it seems like attract to each other? As far as the especially black men and white women, I'm just keeping it 100, man. Don't crucify me, y'all. Don't. I need to go to church. I'm wrong, Father. All right, for real though. Like, and I know it's the same way. I have a friend that's will confirm. Like, it's the same way a little bit. Like I think white men are attracted to black women. I think it's just I think black women are attracted to white men. I think that everyone is attracted to what they least have seen in life, or something unfamiliar, like something new. So, and that goes deep on the Jacobian theory of they separated us, completely separated us, and then we're supposed to all come back to one race. But that goes too deep. But this is a video all in itself. How she said how it's some magnetism and like opposites attract. Like, cause it's just the real shit. Like, we can dig up all this history in the world, but black people, you know damn well you love white people, and white people, you know damn well you love black people. So let's just stop fucking fronting. Like I say on all the videos, like, it's the elites, the top dogs, the motherfucking puppet masters that we need to get. But if y'all want to keep fighting down here on the lower levels, that's up to y'all. But I got a little more for y'all. Shit, this might be a 2-hour stream. I got work in the morning, but we working right now. No, let's go.
Take a brief look at the people living in southern Germany, in the territory of the Jews called the Palatinate. Did they look like the modern day white Jews of Germany today, or were they black? As the following reference reads, and it reads, differing originally in language, though even the oldest of the present generation know nothing of the German tongue, spoken or written, as well as in race and religion from the natives among whom they were planted. These Palatines still cling together like the members of a clan and worship together. It says most of them have a distinctly foreign type of features and are strongly built, swarthy in complexion, dark-haired, and brown-eyed. So you see, fam, most of the Palatine are swarthy in complexion. This is confirmed by Benjamin Franklin in 1751 in a paper titled Observations Concerning the Increase of Mankind. In his paper, Benjamin Franklin voices his support for a white America and a banning of the so-called black people in America. One of the black groups he wanted to ban from America were the swarthy Palatines of southern Germany. As the following reference reads, and it reads, and since detachments of English from Britain sent to America will have their places at home soon supplied and increased so largely here, why should the Palatine Boers be suffered to swarm into our settlements, and by herding together establish their language and manners to the exclusion of ours? Why should Pennsylvania, founded by the English, become a colony of aliens who will shortly be so numerous as to Germanize us instead of our Anglifying them, and will never adopt our language or customs any more than they can acquire our complexion? Which leads me to add one other remark, that the number of purely white people in the world is proportionally small. All Africa is black or tawny. Asia, chiefly tawny. America, exclusive of the newcomers, wholly so. So in other words, fam, he's saying America is tawny, Asia is tawny, and Africa is tawny. Let's keep reading, fam. It says, and in Europe, the Spaniards, Italians, French, Russians, and the Swedes are generally of what we call, listen, a swarthy complexion, as are the Germans also. What? Well, I thought the Germans were white. Well, according to Benjamin Franklin, the Germans were a swarthy complexion. But we'll come back to this, fam. Let's keep reading. It says, the Saxons only accepted, who with the English make the principal body of white people on the face of the earth. What? Fam, you got to get this. It says, the Saxons only, along with the English, they make up the principal body of the white people on the face of the earth. Now, this is according to Benjamin Franklin. Now, you have to wonder, family, what was Benjamin Franklin talking about when he's implying that the only white people during this time were the English people and the Saxons? That says a lot, fam, because the Saxons were, not only were they in England, they were also in northern Germany. But let's keep reading, fam, because according to Benjamin Franklin, the Germans were swarthy. All right, let's keep reading. It says, I could wish their numbers were increased. And while we are, as I may recall it, scouring our planet by clearing America of woods and making this side of our globe reflect a brighter light to the eyes of inhabitants in Mars and Venus. Listen, fam, it says, why should we, in the sight of superior beings, darken its people? Why increase the sons of Africa by planting them in America, where we have so fair an opportunity by excluding all blacks and tawnies, of increasing the lovely white and red? But perhaps I am partial to the complexion of my own country, for such kind of partiality is natural to mankind. Now, either Benjamin Franklin was drunk and had too much moonshine, or he's telling a truth that very few people know about today, that only the Saxons and the English made up the principal body of white people on the face of the earth. It's interesting, family, because as I stated before, the Saxons are in North Germany, where the Jews are indeed white. As the following reference reads, and it reads, we need go no further than the Jews of southern Spain and compare them with those of Holland and, listen, fam, it says, northern Germany, to perceive a very striking difference. The Spanish Jew is always dark complexion, and his hair is uniformly black, while the German Jew is often as fair as any German and has light or red hair with blue eyes. Now we're going to come back to that red hair and blue eyes. So just keep that in the back of your mind, fam. Red hair and blue eyes. That's associated with these Jews in northern Germany. All right, well, let's return back to our reference here, fam. Benjamin Franklin in his paper states he wants to exclude all blacks and tawnies from America. I'm sorry, fam. Did they teach us this in school? Did you know that Benjamin Franklin did not want the so-called black man in America? That he wanted white America? That he didn't want any swarthy Jeremy Palatine? But I thought that all Germans were white. What's Benjamin Franklin talking about? What's this reference referring to swarthy Palatines talking about? Well, fam, this is referring to the fact that at one time, Germany was black. This is supported and confirmed by anthropologists and DNA. When examining ancient remains, anthropologists noted that Germany changed from a dolichocephalic people to a brachiocephalic people. In other words, they saw that the white skulls eventually replaced the black skulls. As the following reference reads, and it reads, dolichocephaly. Such skulls are called dolichocephalic and are typical of Australian Aborigines, that's the black Australians, and native Southern Africans. And the next reference reads, and it reads, German anthropologists agree that the average cephalic index of Southern Germany had changed from dolichocephalic to brachiocephalic in the Iron Age. Now note, fam, that anthropologists agree that brachiocephalic replaced dolichocephalic. In addition, DNA analysis have even pinpointed the group who brought white skin and red hair into Europe. It's the DNA of a group of people who invaded Europe from the Caucasus Mountain. As the following reference reads, and it reads, R1 populations spread genes for light skin, blonde hair, and red hair. And it reads, the principal Proto-Germanic branches of the Indo-European family tree is R1b S21. And it dropped down to the next paragraph and it says, the presence of R1b S21 in other parts of Europe can be attributed almost exclusively to the Germanic migrations that took place between the 3rd and 10th centuries. Family. This quote gets into the overall history of Germany, which we'll talk about briefly here. So in general, modern day historians agree that modern day Germans came from somewhere else. In other words, historians agree that many modern day Germans aren't the original Germans. These German invaders are described by Tacitus as red hair and blue-eyed invaders. Remember, we talked about the Jews being red hair and blue eyes. Remember that, fam? These are the people who conquered Rome, took over rulership, and made themselves the kings and queens and became the head of the new Holy Roman Empire. So basically, the Red Dragon came under new management. These dramatic invaders took over Germany, Spain, Portugal, France, and England. Basically, they took over Europe. Now keep in mind, family, these red-haired, blue-eyed invaders were the same people who expelled the Spanish and Portuguese brews from Spain in 1492. If you look at the pictures of the king and queen of Spain, some pictures portray them as red-haired Christian monarchs. These Germans were called the Goths in Spain, the Franks in France and Germany, and the Saxons in England. Different names, same people. Red hair, blue eyes was their mark of distinction, just as the color red was the mark of distinction of the Red Dragon. It's deep, fam. When you talk about the people who placed many of the so-called Negroes on the transatlantic slave ships, you're talking about the red-haired, blue-eyed people. They literally started the transatlantic slave trade. These people who came from the Caucasus Mountains are synonymous with Esau, a people who lived by the sword and conquered the world. The people in the Bible who had a perpetual...
See, he aligns with Esau because he's more of like a Jewish Hebrew Black Hebrew Israelite channel. But like I said, it's a couple of different mixes. Alright, let me pull something up on YouTube real quick before we get off here. Y'all got the point. I can fucking take a nap on this shit and this shit just still slam dunk. Like, what? All you gotta do is Google all this shit. Like, it's pretty much all there for you. Have fun jumping down the rabbit hole. Alright, let's see what else I got. Alright. Where is it? He was talking about something. Commercial. Let's go. Gotcha, bitch.
Chicken incubator. It was furnished with a soft bed, placed in a dark room and kept in a temperature of 85 degrees Fahrenheit by means of hot water. In this baby incubator, he placed one of the infants, a miserable specimen of the crying, colicky kind. The child was provided with a nursing bottle, and of course only fed at regular intervals. The child ceased its crying on the second day, much to the doctor's surprise, and never again cried for the space of the 8 weeks it tenanted the incubator. At the end of this period, it had the appearance of a healthy child, a year old. Encouraged by the success, Dr. Tarnier repeated the experiment with the like results. He then, with the permission of the hospital authorities, proceeded to construct an incubator capable of receiving 400 children, and in this he placed all the children in the hospital, 360 in number. All except 2 remained in the incubator 6 months, when they had to be removed, having outgrown their narrow beds, were it not that the facts are vouched for by a commission of 12 who made a report to the government that the results claimed might be deemed incredible. The average age of the infants when put in the incubator was 8 months and 3 days, the youngest being 12 hours and the eldest 11 months. The average weight of the 360 was 10 pounds. At the end of the 6 months, the average weight was 85 pounds, and all are said to have looked like children 8 years old. As much was accomplished in 6 months by the incubator as in accomplished in 8 years of ordinary life. The infants were not only large, but also strong and healthy, and most of them walked within a week of leaving their nest. The results were astonishing and exceeded Dr. Tarnier's most sanguine expectations.
Are y'all hearing that shit? That shit said they came out like they was 8 years old. Know what I was thinking too, like earlier? I was thinking like if you have a mixed baby and you put them in an incubator, I'm thinking like Nephilim shit. Like I'm thinking a lot of different shit right now. And you put them in an incubator and they come out like, could it sound like they gonna start trying to create like giants or like shit that got us wiped out with the flood last time.
It is now expected that every child's hospital will go into the incubation business, so that we shall probably witness a lively competition in the business of raising giants. If this children incubator is a good thing in foundling hospitals, and for hospital babies generally, it ought also to be a good thing in all homes blessed with babies. Doubtless we shall soon witness a new industry started under the fostering care of the national policy, and presently baby incubator agents will be as numerous as sewing machine agents. It would be easy to enlarge on the practical value and suggestiveness of Dr. Tarnier's experiments. First, it is clear that babies were not rocked, yet they enjoyed perpetual repose. This teaches us that all the fuss and worry of mothers and nurses, so wearing to the Constitution, is not only wholly unnecessary, but an absolute evil in all its bearings. Instead of being placed in a condition favorable to absolute quiet, our babies are made a sort of family toy to be tossed from one to another as means of sport. It's almost as if he doesn't understand that babies are family members and that people actually love them. Because then he says, The moment the little creature begins to notice surrounding objects, its powers are excited to the utmost to afford amusement to the family circle. In conclusion, we may be permitted to say that the essential conditions to successful baby raising are 1. Absolute quiet and no unnecessary interference on the part of the nurses. 2. Regular and judicious feeding. 3. Uniformity of temperature above that suited to adults. This condition is difficult of attainment in ordinary life, but much may be accomplished by the knowledge that infants require a higher temperature. Even modified observance of the foregoing conditions would take away much of the worry caused by crying and sleepless babies, and would add greatly to the quiet, health, and growth of our children. It's all very strange, because it seems that they're treating babies as if it was a new thing. And he even compares French babies being grown by artificial means in comparison to French chickens. And this is the literal origin of the baby incubator, being that it was just an ordinary chicken incubator. On top of that, they said that they built these incubators on the side of the foundling hospitals, so they were connected. Why did the foundling hospital have all these premature babies? Did they find them? That doesn't make that much sense. Sure, you can say that the Catholic Church was taking babies, but even then, that's very suspicious. Why were they under 6 months old? Is it possible that they found a way to create babies, but it took them a while to figure out how to keep these prematures alive once rediscovering some type of ancient cloning process? The idea is that these foundlings were abandoned, that because they were unmarried, they had to give them away to these infant asylums. This is deeply integrated into the history of New York, but the history is not well known. Quote, Europe faced the problem of foundlings much sooner than the United States did. When America's British settlers stepped off their boats in the early 17th century, Europe already had cities large enough to create the social conditions that produced significant numbers of foundlings, as well as the religious and governmental structures with which to help them. By then, Europe already had foundling asylums that were several centuries old. By the 18th century, when the United States was just starting and its cities were still small, infant abandonment was a mass phenomena in places like London and Paris. It took until the 19th century for New York to overtake London as a center of Dickensian urban ills, including the presence of large numbers of foundlings. In the Catholic countries of Europe, and also in Russia, with variations depending upon time and place, local and national governments, often together with religious bodies, assumed full responsibility for foundlings. Accidentally conceived infants were anonymously absorbed into large urban foundling asylums. These asylums were at the center of great networks of wet nurses, transporters of babies, physicians, religious officials, and bureaucrats. This was the so-called Catholic system. Its goal was to preserve the honor of unmarried women and families by making babies born outside of marriage disappear. End quote. Now that is the mainstream narrative, that this was some type of problem. But the truth of the matter is, these were Protestants. They didn't even care or prosecute people for having sex because they had brothels everywhere. So the question is, did they really just find these babies? Why the use of Lady Liberty and Artemis of Ephesus? Was it a problem that was created on purpose? Some type of operation? And what's with the references to giant babies in that one report from the Canada Lancet? It does seem that size comes into play here, as not only do many legends speak of ancient cities being created by an advanced race of giants, but the Greek gods and goddesses themselves seem to be referring to these ancient beings. The Amazons are described in many different ways by Greek authors, which is interesting, because they are said to be a warlike race that would kill all the baby boys who were bound by their earth instincts, and their father goddess being Ares, the god of war, a new type of human. This is the origin of Eros, or Cupid, in which a hybrid human was created that had formed two polarities, male and female. Think about it. Remember Futurama and the Amazon women? They were trying to have snoo. With the purpose of what? Repopulation. Now come on guys, you guys know that Matt Groening knows some deep stuff and that is no mere coincidence. They also are giants, so it doesn't make sense that they would really have sexual intercourse with such small humans. This is just a play on the process in which these Amazon women giants created a new hybrid man in which they changed the age and added orifices for eating, drinking, and pooping. How else would a civilization of only women survive? They would need some type of repopulation program whether it used technology or not, and this is never really fully investigated by historians. We know of ancient farming and breeding facilities in regards to agriculture or meats, but what about human farming? Was that ever thought about by the ancients? If there was some cataclysm and a nation had lost almost all of its people, was it ever thought that, hey, we need to find a way to repopulate this place? I mean, I feel like that's going to be one of the first things you're going to think about when starting a civilization. It's pretty basic, but to what degree? And was there technology used in the process? If so, was it possible to actually design, in the case of eugenics, specific traits to be desired in the final outcome? All of these things are left to the vault of esoteric history. However, with the right questions, we can begin to look at these subjects with new eyes. This isn't restricted to just whites, as in the story of Calafia. These Montalvo novels, which are actually from an earlier unknown 14th century writer during the Islamic rule of Spain, they traveled to America, and in California used to exist a race of giant black warrior women who also were very fond of griffins. It seems throughout history, remnants of multiple tribes of godlike women races have existed and were called to be used in some war. As for Calafia, it was the Muslims versus the Christians in Constantinople. The Amazons are also deeply connected with the Scythians, as it is said at some point the two intermarried and created a new race of Scythians called Sauromateans. Quote, the 5th century BC historian Herodotus did the best to fill in the missing gaps. The father of history, as he is known, located the Amazonian capital at Themyscira, a fortified city on the banks of the Thermodon River near the coast of the Black Sea in what is now northern Turkey. The women divided their time between pillaging expeditions as far afield as Persia and closer to home, founding such famous towns as Smyrna, Ephesus, Sinope, and Paphos. Procreation was confined to an annual event with a neighboring tribe. End quote. There were many tribes of warrior women, but I think that is just the surface level of the symbol. As we discussed with the androgynous beings, they had a different form in mind, no need to eat and drink, and were essentially gods. Wonder Woman, Lady Liberty, the mother of immigrants, Athena. Well, just as the owl is the symbol of Minerva, the bee is a symbol of Artemis. The bee of Artemis. Quote, the early association of the bee with the cult of Artemis is attested by varied evidence. It appears not only upon the strange polymastoid statue of the Ephesian goddess, but upon the earliest coins of her city. As the owl was the emblem of Athena at Athens, so the bee seems to have been the emblem of Artemis at Ephesus. Although, the extant example of experimentation.
Is your auto warranty about to expire?
All kinds of animal to humanoid ratio human by Freeman's understanding of repopulation. Its supposed construction by Freemasons in 1886 brings suspicion to this being a symbol on how the United States acquired its new citizens. I also don't think that they were creating just humans. They were probably experimenting with all kinds of animal to humanoid ratios, creating the hybrids from myth and legend as well as the hybrid animals we know today. The Temple of Artemis is just one example, but now that we know the symbol is connected to many other goddesses, this most likely was all over the world. We see these depictions of hybrid beings from a variety of different cultures, and even the Bible says that the flood came because of the hybrids and giants that existed. Michael Tarsarian, who has heavily influenced our work, presents the Garden of Eden as after the flood in the timeline, in which our forms were genetically altered to be more material and reptilian. Of course, his approach at the time was extraterrestrials. However, what if this goes deeper than some Anunnaki Sitchin novel, and perhaps we were referring to some type of advanced race of ancient humans that possessed advanced technology and or knowledge of alchemy? Even the story of the homunculus and artificial man, the golem, or referencing a similar process in which an artificial man could be created through the elements. That'll have to be for the next video, but this symbolism is multi-leveled. On the surface, it is referring to some type of physical process in which an artificial human could be created. Alchemy is the origin of modern-day science, not too far out to consider that they may have been considering early forms of genetic engineering. The deeper meaning, and also the key to the Philosopher's Stone, is that this act of turning to gold is a reference for the higher self merging with the lower self, a creation of a spiritual body of light that can be controlled and manipulated. That's an entirely different subject, but this idea of creating humans and or breeding them are not new concepts. They have existed for ages now because again, when cataclysms occur, the bulk of the population is destroyed. There aren't too many options. You can either wait and build up again, or perhaps a method was devised to speed up the process by a couple generations.
Are you serious?
Foundling hospitals since their inception were funded by the elite royals, the choice of symbols being fitting. Are we not to question why their seal is Artemis? How are they finding so many orphans and premature babies? Well, orphanages go back to the time of Rome, and even one of the earliest orphanages that we know of is in Venice, called La Pieta, which is a convent of monks and nuns. Since its origin, orphans had been the responsibility of the Catholic Church. Are we going to trust what they leave us with in terms of this all being an honest attempt to take care of the needy, when they are the ones who put the laws in place, are in charge of the economy, and yet all these poor families have to give up their children because of the society that they live in that is controlled by these Catholic rulers? Something else is going on if you ask me. And as we know now, these incubators were right by the foundling hospitals since they had so many premature babies for some reason. If you type baby incubators 1900s, you will first see the babies of Coney Island. But there's more to this story, as during the late 1800s, a physician, Martin Coney, had begun to demonstrate the efficacy of infant incubators throughout the US and Europe. They were showing these everywhere, and it's really not that advanced of an invention. Seems weird that this came out of nowhere. Then you start having these world fairs, and they're showing off these babies as some sideshow, and you could literally buy them so they were for sale? If they did this today, there would be all sorts of protest. But now, we know that these premature babies were orphans or foundlings of some kind. They had incubators in Buffalo, New York, at the Trans-Mississippi and International Exhibition in Omaha, Nebraska, Chicago, Jacksonville, Florida, and many more. These baby incubators were connected with the World Fair in Paris, where Martin Coney also had an exhibit. Meaning, those postcards may have been developed in France, but the movies and images were not to promote one single event. This was a worldwide event occurring during this time, and that was the reason they were funded to make the movies and postcards. People from around the world were to be advertised these baby incubators. Some suggest that this may have been a factor in the sense of multiple women giving birth, but that also comes with many problems, and they actually still have these today. Help me! At all, but it's very and would cause issues in consistency. For more accuracy, cleanliness, you would need control over the environment. It would seem that multiple countries are involved in this in the modern day, and even if that is the explanation, it's still horrifying and strange that this isn't really well known. All they leave us with are occult symbols to decode. Well, I think there's even more to this story than just a literal sex factory, And it's interesting, because this subject has really piqued the collective interest it seems. As we mentioned in the beginning, Netflix randomly released Storks and it's at top 5 right now, so I never really heard of this movie, but I just wanted to mention a couple things. The movie has some crazy symbolism. Well, first, it's a high budget film around 70 million, and it's a movie about how storks in the past delivered babies. This was their duty, their passion, what they were born to do. And it's obvious from the beginning that they have some massive postal force. They mentioned at the beginning how there were rules that you could not form a bond with the baby, to not even treat it as human, but that they were just packages. The first packages that this postal service began with since its inception. Whoever made this movie or wrote in the symbolism knows what we're discussing about right now. Which makes it even weirder that they put this in the movie up during this time on Netflix. Well, the story goes that as this postal service developed into the modern day, they stopped delivering babies to the point where it essentially becomes myth and all the humans laugh at anyone who thinks these storks still deliver babies. But the weird thing about that is they say, "Oh sweetie, storks don't deliver babies anymore, but they used to a long time ago." So it's not that they don't do it or they think the idea is ridiculous, it's just that they don't do it anymore. And that's kind of where we start with this story, that this company, called Corner Store, which is the original postal service that was delivering babies, turned into this huge corporation. This seems to be a blatant parody of Amazon, the modern day king of delivery. Keep in mind that this movie is from 2016. The main character is a weird comedic stork that wants to be boss desperately. He just follows the system, is willing to do anything for this fake illusion of success. Well, the boss wants to get rid of this orphan girl, which, that was weird to me. Right off the bat, they introduced this orphan character. That's no accident. Her name is Tulip, who is a human orphan raised by storks. The symbol of the tulip has been used by royalty as a symbol of wealth and prosperity. But red tulips, the girl's hair is chosen red on purpose, so we're speaking of red tulips. From the Buffalo News, February 28, 1897, quote, "Harvard men dined, made merry around the banquet table at the Saturn Club. The Harvard flag, a huge banner of the brightest crimson with the university's initial letter of corresponding size, as white as the driven snow in the center, floated from the staff of the Saturn Club yesterday, and it was significant of the banquet of the Harvard Alumni Association of Western New York. Crimson, the color which had urged the diners as students to ecstasies of affection for their alma mater, was the one decoration. There was about 100 alumni at a long table which took in the whole length of the dining room. The scene was as pretty as good taste could have made it. The flag draped the wall near the head of the table, and the latter had in its center a bank of crimson flowers. This was flanked at either end of the table by the university letter in perfect formation and composed of red tulips. So for their altar mater ceremony, they dined with decorative red tulips. And remember, we're speaking of symbols. It's only when we learn to understand these symbols that a great veil can be lifted. It gets way deeper. After typing red tulip fertility, just looking for symbols, there are companies using these symbols where they advertise to grow your family using egg donors. Even specific phenotypes are possible. Now my only question is, why use the symbol of the tulip? As we know, this means that the tulip means more than just a red flower. In many ways, it represents the sex organs themselves, as with the postcards. It's from the 17th century. Oh, and get this, it wasn't just tulips that were overpriced, but cabbages. Let's remember that tulips and roses are very similar in appearance. There was a cabbage fever. Now, that seems so random to me. Why cabbages? We know that they use symbolism. Are they actually referring to something else? This will have its own video, but basically, After the Dutch were supposedly liberated from the Spanish Empire in 1581, they just began growing tulips all around their palaces, and the rich began to become obsessed with tulips for no apparent reason. Well, this caused some type of economic bubble, or really some strange early created inflation. But what if it's not that these items became overpriced? It's that there are actually references to a different product. Could it be code? Quote, "It is agreed that mania is a psychopathological disorder. Therefore, whoever speaks of tulip mania means the people who buy fleshy tulip bulbs have acted madly and irrationally." End quote. So they literally call these people insane for spending so much on tulips, cabbages, and carrots. Which I think there's a big joke at play here. Not only is this the origin of our money, but look at how they promoted this stuff. It's just like the postcards. Satirical cartoons. But these are even worse. Many of these satirical prints contain cabbages, showing the intimate relationship between tulips and cabbages. In one, Aesop pointed out a group of monkeys, the symbol for foolishness, eating cabbage while wolves chased innocent sheep. The title page on one play showed a satyr Queen Actionist, a cartoon from De Groot Teferil der Dwarschild 1720, and this is in the British Library. You have two harlequins, or jokers, or mimes, that are on a stage opening a veil. At the top, you can see they're selling cabbages and carrots. But what's behind the veil? We see at the top that there is an owl, representing the cult of Minerva, and we see the Freemasonic compass, or corner right angle. Now this isn't no ordinary depiction, and I love how they label this as just a satirical cartoon. I mean, big boss that he fired her already. Freemasons? Why use Amazon? Is it a reference to Amazon women? Well, the cornerstone in Freemasonry is the basis upon which anything is founded. Hence, orphans, tulips, and foundlings. There's also a part where they lose the baby to some wolves, which made me think of the old stories of children being raised by wolves, famous from Roman mythology. The stork boss even tried to cover up this information in the movie. They didn't want people to know that they were producing babies again, because then their stocks would plummet. So essentially, a castle with an ancient advanced AI baby factory machine, kind of like Noah's Ark, was being used by the state, and these storks were the postal workers designed to deliver them, but then over time, corporate evolution made this machine irrelevant, and so they no longer needed the storks. Also, they never really mention whether this world has sexual intercourse or not. They never have the birds and the bees conversation. I mean, why do we even call it that? In the Netflix movie I Am Mother, it's literally about a repopulation center full of clones for the purpose of rebuilding civilization after a major disaster. The primary crop grown in the surrounding land is corn, another fertility symbol, and a plant whose kernels resemble honeycombs. This also kind of connects with Children of the Corn, a society of children ruled by a demon. Where we have an intimate relationship with storks, and it's way older than the Cabbage Patch Kids or the 1900's repopulation postcards. We have more to say on that as well. But for now, let's finish off with baby farming. Now there's only so much that I can say, and you'll have to do your own research here. But during the Victorian age, there was this phrase of baby farming, in which you had these women who owned these orphan homes, where the story goes that these women could no longer support the babies, so they literally would kill infants. It's a horrifying story, and there are many books on this subject. It's also happened in many places all throughout the world. I do think this is a cover story for something much deeper, as they had advertisements for these baby farms as well. They're from the 1860s, and so they're much more difficult to find. One article is literally called Wolves in Women's Clothing. So, if this was the state of childcare during the 19th century, then why do we trust anything from the mainstream source? It's our job to begin asking questions on how this all started and when it began. Even Vedic literature has references to hybrid beings and genetic manipulation. They had a similar science to alchemy with an understanding of different elements needed to create material flesh. There's this great channel that talks about these things where in ancient Vedic temples you can see that they had an understanding of some early form of DNA manipulation, even understanding what a sperm and egg looks like from a microscope. There was also this other temple that showed carvings on how they were experimenting with different hybrid creatures, which would also explain why we see so many strange beings in medieval depictions. Were these once real creatures? We get these depictions from some of the most famous philosophers and ancient historians. They believe them to be true as with monstrous races of early Christian writings. In order to conclude, this history of test tube babies is also an obscure topic. But here you go. First you get a bunch of women, you give them fertility drugs, so they're extremely fertile. Then this simulates the development of extra eggs. Matured eggs are removed from the ovaries, and this is done with an ultrasound guided needle. Once these eggs are retrieved, they literally just put a sperm and egg in a petri dish. And you'll get some that fertilize, which is called an embryo. This embryo can continue to develop in the lab, and they have controlled conditions for this. Now in the modern day, they say that the term test tube baby is just a term to smear by the media, but this term is much older. Nowadays, once the embryo gets to a certain stage, they transfer it into a uterus or surrogate female. This process would have been attempted at some point in the past. There are other ways that the eggs could have been extracted. The earliest reference of test tube babies is a newspaper article from the American Guardian, January 4th, 1929. Chemists will be the only daddies someday, is prediction. And again, I think this is mockery, but let's read what they have to tell us. Bosses will order employees by certain plans and specifications, Britain believes. Test tube babies would be much like nature's own.